Lovely to see. 35 years.
No, that must be wrong, Gaby. Come on.
You were 3 when you started. Now, your first lot of books we have as a family, your trilogy.
The Itch books.
Itch books. But now tell me about Blame. My 15-year-old, that's all I see of her at the moment. She's just sat there
that's the book,
reading it.
All right.
Yeah. Yes, not hiding from...
Well, that's great. Thank you. Well, yes, it's a thriller, and it's about a teenage girl called Ant, who's 16, and her brother called Matty, who's 11, and they're in prison. In this book, we lock up families, and they are...
But they're not in prison for something that they've done,
Exactly
though, are
right. They are heritage criminals. They are guilty of heritage crime. So the idea behind the book is that in a few years in the future, once some crazy politicians, who we might just have seen glimpses of, get in control of things, we are to be held criminally responsible for crimes committed by our parents or grandparents. And, and if you are convicted, then you go to prison, and you go to prison with your family. And most of the book takes place in what I've called Spike, which is an old Victorian slang term for the workhouse, which is this big prison which I've constructed in the middle of London.
And you've got its own vocabulary. You've got new words in there. You've created this whole world, and it's not a real crime, though. It doesn't actually exist, but when you start reading it, it's as if it does.
The idea behind heritage crime, if it was going to work, is because it goes against every kind of natural instinct when it comes to the law in this country, it had to be believable. So I tried to design it so that it would be defendable on question time. So a disreputable politician would go on there and would defend it and get applause from the audience. So that was the whole idea. So the idea that you could be held responsible. So, for example, if your grandparents did fantastically well running an asbestos factory and my grandparents suffered very badly at the hands of your grandparents, but you're fine and I'm fine, maybe I should be able to sue you for all your money.
And I'd go to prison for their crime.
That's right.
Now, I mean, all of this is so magical, but the way that you got the idea is extraordinary. It's sort of Michael Morpurgo and Dreams.
I know. You'll have to just believe me on this, that it's true. Michael Morpurgo, a legend, of course, wrote to me because he was putting together a book of First World War memories. And he said, do you have anything that you could contribute? And I had a great-uncle who was killed in 1916, Lieutenant Stanley Killingback, and I knew a bit about him because I remembered that a photograph of him, or a painting, was on my granny's mantelpiece, and that's where she would put her remembrance poppy. So I thought, well, I could write a piece about him. So I found out about Stanley Killingback, find out about how he died. And because it was for Michael Morpurgo, I thought I wanted...
Private Peaceful and
Warhorse. I wanted to make it as good as I could possibly make it. And then I sent it off. And I thought that was going to be the end of it. And then that night I had a dream. And
really?
Yeah, I know. It's true. And I dreamt that I was going to prison. And I was going to prison because it had been found out that my great-uncle was actually a deserter, which he wasn't, but in my dream he was, and had got away with it. And because he had got away with it, I had to go to prison in his place. And I was in a queue of people, and they were all going to prison for things that their parents or grandparents had done. And my wife said, wow, that sounds quite powerful. And that image stayed with me a long time, and that became the basis of heritage crime. And Ant and Matty and everything that comes out of this book came from that dream. And
you go through all of the book with your kids, don't you?
Well, what I do is my son Joe is the first reader, and then the family chip in and they join in. It's not written by committee, you know, but dialogue is very important because if you listen to teenagers talking, it's not the way we talk. And
when we do that, it's very embarrassing.
So, as a way, that's very true. So, as a way, you mentioned the glossary of terms and slang at the beginning of the book. I put a lot of slang in there because prison is full of slang, and so this gang of people, they're known as strutters. The people who are guilty of heritage crime, they're strutters because they have like a tag fixed to the bottom of their back, and it affects the way that they walk. So they're known as strutters. So they have their own lingo. They talk in a different way. Ant is part Haitian, and so there's a Haitian language which she speaks to her brother as like a secret language to keep what they really think away from everyone else.
Has this taken over from radio? Because all the years I've known you, you love radio.
No, I do love radio. No, I do the radio in the afternoon.
And your show's doing wonderfully well, and you get some incredible guests on that, but my favourite bit has to be Confessions.
The confession's funny. We were just talking in makeup, you know. So I said, "Oh, I love that confession when. I love that confession when." You know, and it's been going for quite a while. In fact, the TV series we did here many years ago. But no, it's terrific, and everyone has got a confession. And Gaby, at some stage, you need to write to me and. and encourage your children. Maybe they have things to confess.
Like I tell you and your 7 million listeners. Simon, always lovely to see you. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck with Blame.
Thank you.